Woo! What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to be covering all of the high-yield essentials when it comes to factors influencing enzyme action. It's one hell of a title. Now, you might be thinking that Scrat over here is looking at this acorn, but you cannot be more wrong, man. He is admiring our website, teachmebio.org, and that's got to tell you something. So yes, head over to our website to get access to all of our premium resources now. Without further ado, let's just get started with this video. On this table, you can see all of the factors influencing enzyme action, and they include substrate concentration, pH, inhibitors, enzyme concentration, and lastly, temperature. We're going to cover each and every single one of these throughout the course of this video, so don't worry, it's going to make sense eventually. First off, we're going to go ahead and focus on enzyme concentration, and you will see throughout this video, this brain is going to be up to no good. To explain the effect of enzyme concentration on enzyme activity, we're going to use this specific reaction right here. Our reactant, our substrate, is going to be hydrogen peroxide, and we're going to convert this big man into water and oxygen. And the enzyme, the tool responsible for doing so, is called catalase. Now, as a side note, you should know that hydrogen peroxide is harmful. It is a waste product, a byproduct that can build up in our bodies. And that is why we have this enzyme to break it down into water and oxygen so that it doesn't build up and cause damage. That's the big idea. Now, the big question is, what is the effect of enzyme concentration on the rate of this reaction? Do you think the more of these catalases we have, the faster this rate of reaction will be? Yes, that is the case. So here we have a little graph. On the x-axis, we have enzyme concentration, so from little enzyme to a lot of enzyme. And on the y-axis, we have rate of reaction. In other words, how fast this reaction is happening. And you can imagine if we have very little enzyme in our body, then very little products will be made. The rate will be really, really low, kind of like this. But the more enzymes we have, the faster the rate of reaction will be, right? Now, the next question is, do you think this is going to go on and on and on forever? Do you think this linear pattern is going to continue? The short answer is no. You'll notice eventually we're going to reach a point where the rate doesn't increase fast anymore. In fact, it starts to slow down and actually reach a plateau. Now, the big question is, why is this? Why on earth does it start to slow down and reach this plateau? It is very easy to understand if we take a look into this little beaker. Say we have a ton of these enzymes. We have so many enzymes that all of our reactants are being occupied, are being bound to by the enzyme. If we go ahead and add any more enzymes, that is pointless, man. There is no more substrate to act on. So even though we're adding more enzymes, we cannot increase the rate of reaction because all of these substrates are already being consumed, already being acted on by all of the enzymes in the solution already. It's almost the same as a situation where you're busy using some sort of tool trying to fix some sort of problem, and your genius friend comes along and he gives you another one of the same tool thinking that's going to help you solve the problem. But you just want to punch him in the face at that point. So guys, that is it that you need to know for the effect of enzyme concentration on the rate of reaction. Next up, we're going to talk about the effect of substrate concentration on enzyme action. We're going to use the very same reaction that we just mentioned, hydrogen peroxide being converted into water and oxygen using this enzyme catalase. Now you can imagine what's going to happen if we increase the amount of raw material, the amount of substrate. Will we be able to make more product? Yes, of course, because the more substrate we supply the enzyme with, then the more products it can make using those substrates. So initially, at least in the beginning, when we increase the amount of substrate, we can imagine the rate of reaction will get faster and faster and faster. But this will not continue forever. You'll notice after some point of increasing substrate concentration, it will start to slow down. It won't increase as fast anymore. It won't increase in this linear fashion forever. It will start to gradually reach a plateau. Now, the reason for this plateau is actually quite obvious. You can imagine at some point all of these enzymes are going to become busy. They're going to become occupied. So even if you increase the amount of substrate, they will not be able to increase their work rate because they are all already bound to some substrate, already busy converting it into a product. So giving them more substrate will not help them make more products more quickly. They're going to start to reach a maximum point. That's the big idea. Now, in addition to this, we need to learn some extra things. We need to label this graph a little bit. You need to know what we call this point. You need to know what we call this maximum rate of reaction that is reached when we increase the substrate concentration. We call this maximum rate of reaction that is reached Vmax because V is velocity and rate are really the same thing. So you can imagine at this point, all of the enzymes are occupied. All of them are saturated, busy making a product. None of them are on a holiday. Now, half of Vmax, we give a specific name. Half of the maximum rate of reaction we call, surprise, surprise, half Vmax. So this is the point at which half of the enzymes are fully occupied and busy making products using the reactants. Now, why are we going to learn about half Vmax? I don't get it. What's the point? The point is related to substrate concentration over here. Whatever the substrate concentration required to reach half Vmax, we give a very special name. We call this point Km, and it stands for Michaelis-Menten constant. Now, what's the point of knowing about Km? What's the point of knowing the substrate concentration required to reach half Vmax? Well, because it's related to the idea of affinity, the idea of attraction. You know, affinity is the sciencey way of saying attraction between two things. So you should know that the higher the affinity of the enzyme for its specific substrate, then the lower this Km value will be, and also, of course, vice versa. So that's really what you guys need to know about the effect of substrate concentration on enzyme activity. The third factor that we're going to be looking at is temperature, the effect of temperature on enzyme action. Surprise, surprise, yet another graph. I can't believe it. But don't worry, this one is quite interesting to explain. And actually, it's quite unique looking compared to the ones that we just looked at. So let's start down here with low temperatures. You should know at very low temperatures, all of the molecules, the enzymes, the substrates, they don't want to move, man. They're so cold, they want to huddle up and not go anywhere. The same way as you on a cold winter's morning. You don't want to leave your bed. You don't want to move anywhere. So because they don't move a lot, then they don't collide a lot. Then the enzymes don't get into contact with these substrates and therefore they cannot make so many products. Now, as you increase the temperature, now these guys are going to move a little bit more. And because they have more kinetic energy, they're moving around a lot faster. Now their odds of collision is way higher. So now these enzymes will get into contact with these substrates more frequently and therefore be able to make more products. Eventually, the temperature will be perfect for the maximum rate of reaction, and we call that the optimum temperature. And you might have thought that if you increase the temperature more, then the rate should increase more and more because these guys are moving faster and faster and faster, so they should collide even faster and make even more products. But that's not the case. After you pass the optimum temperature, you actually start killing the enzymes. And I know that's not the right science term to use. The right science term to use instead of kill is denature. You're starting to change the three-dimensional structure of this enzyme if the temperatures are too high. You're breaking the bonds holding this enzyme together so that now its structure is no longer like what it used to be. And if its structure is no longer like it used to be, it won't be able to bind to its substrates to make the products it's supposed to make. So gradually, as you pass the optimum temperature, slowly all of the enzymes will become denatured, become killed. All right? And then we'll eventually reach a very low rate of reaction. The fourth one we're going to talk about is pH. It's the second to last one. We're almost there. When you look at the graph of pH, it is real similar to what we just looked at for temperature. Check it out. At very low pHs, very acidic environments, we can destroy these enzymes, denaturing them, preventing them from being able to catalyze this reaction and making products. And the same goes for at extremely high pHs. You can do the same thing, man. You can denature that enzyme, preventing it from doing its job properly. In between those two extremes, you're going to have a optimum temperature where that enzyme works at its absolute best. So guys, that's it for the idea of pH and its effect on enzyme activity. The final factor that we're going to talk about is inhibitors. It's kind of like the same idea as how we're trying to play GTA 6, but someone keeps on stealing the CDs away, so we cannot do it. You need to know that an inhibitor is a molecule that binds to an enzyme and decreases its activity. And we're going to learn about two broad categories of inhibitors: competitive inhibitors and non-competitive inhibitors. Let's check it out. A competitive inhibitor works like this. It's going to have a pretty similar structure to the substrate that wants to bind to the active site of the enzyme. And it's going to compete directly, hence the name, with that active site, preventing the substrate from going ahead and actually binding to the active site. So now the reaction can't happen and the products cannot be made. It's as simple as that. A non-competitive inhibitor is a little bit different. It doesn't compete directly with the substrate for the active site. It works a little bit different. It's going to bind to a different site other than the active site, and we call that site an allosteric site. But the problem is when it binds to the allosteric site, it results in a conformational change of the enzyme. So now the substrate that used to fit into the active site now no longer fits. And because it doesn't fit, now it cannot bind to the active site and a product cannot be made. Surprise, another graph, but you should be familiar with this one a little bit because this is the graph on substrate concentration and rate of reaction. So you will recognize this blue line over here. This is the situation with no inhibitor present at all. But now we have two new lines because we learned about two inhibitors. So let's start with this one, the competitive inhibitor. You'll notice that as we increase the substrate concentration, this one has a slightly lower rate of reaction than the situation with no inhibitor present. But as we approach real high substrate concentrations, it will eventually meet the line with no inhibitor present because at very high substrate concentrations, they will totally overwhelm, totally overpower the inhibitor. So it's as if the inhibitor is no longer even there anymore, and the maximum rate of reaction will be met. Now, in the case of the non-competitive inhibitor, because it isn't directly competing with the substrate, even at very high substrate concentrations, it cannot overpower this inhibitor because it's over here, hiding away. So they cannot overpower it, and the maximum rate of reaction will be way lower than the situation with no inhibitor present. I hope that kind of makes sense. Now, guys, that is it for this video. I really hope it was useful. I hope we got something into that massive brain of yours, and we will see you guys in the next one.